All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our live stream today. I am Developer Relations Engineer, joined by, well, I should tell my name. I forgot my name. I'm Developer Relations Engineer David Jones-Gilardi. I'm joined today by Adarsh Shirgannavar. I hope I completely did not butcher your name because I know Adarsh was explaining to me how to say it properly. Anyway, so Adarsh, why don't you tell everybody who you are, what you're doing, and we can get into content. And I say hi, Michelle, and hello.
Hey, everybody. Thank you. David, I think you did a great job. I won't tell everybody that we did a 1 hour long exercise just remembering and pronouncing the names correctly.
Right.
That will always remain our secret. Uh, and so I am Adarsh. Nice to meet you all. I see so many people joining in. Super excited today. Thank you for that exciting welcome, David. I think today is a great day where we are going to discuss how do we measure, test, and improve our agents, which we built. But no, what I also want to tell you is don't look at this as just a one-way session. I want to be this to be conversational. Keep your questions coming in. We have our superwoman Michelle right here available with us, along with David and myself. We would love to answer all your questions. And if there are more questions, feel free to reach out to us on our social media, on LinkedIn, wherever you want us. Bombard us with questions because that's where the real learning happens.
Yeah, and speaking of that, I'm just going to riff off that real quick. So for those of you who are joining us here in SQL, I do want to do just a little bit of housekeeping. So feel free to use the chat and have conversations and everything. But if you do have questions, I ask that you use the Q&A widget. You'll see there's a Q&A widget that gives everybody an opportunity to kind of upvote things and allows me to put them on screen. So don't be surprised if you ask a question and you do it in the regular chat. I might prompt you to put it in the Q&A instead. So with that, and we'll also, this is being recorded. It will also be available after the live stream. So we get that question usually every time. So if there is for some reason that you miss part of it or whatever, it will be recorded. You get to see it later. All right, Adarsh, what you got, man? What are we going to talk about? What are we doing?
All right. So what we'll do today is we'll have a detailed discussion on what grounding means for LLMs. If a lot of people here who have joined in are participants, most of them have tried to build applications. We'll look at how to ensure that they have a way to calculate or objectify what hallucinations is their applications making. How do they ensure that their applications are production ready, especially those GenAI applications which tend to hallucinate a lot. We'll see how to measure that, and we'll also talk about other ways where we can improve GenAI applications.
Okay. And it just made me think of something. Like right now, especially in the age of Gen AI, agentic AI, vibe coding, right? It is so easy to prototype an app now and get to a POC. But I know one thing I've observed right out there in the real world, right, is that there is this gap getting from when you have a POC. Now you actually want to deploy and productionize your Gen AI, your agentic app, right? But that gap can be pretty large sometimes with regard to, and I think this is part of what you're talking about today. What I'm getting here is right. Like, what do you do for hallucinations? How do you make your LLMs and your agentic AI more consistent and accurate and that kind of deal? So, is it a true statement that some of the stuff that you're gonna show us is really kind of part of that, like making that bridge across that gap?
Absolutely. So
Okay.
with this, we'll ensure that you are one step closer to putting your applications in production.
Okay. Cool. Alrighty.
Okay, let's get started.
Let's do it.
Okay, so before we start, we all know we have already worked with LLMs. They continue to advance. It started with 2 years ago what it was, and now we have reasoning models, deep research, whatnot, and it will continue to advance. Plus, as they advance, their potential for real world production grade applications grows exponentially, right? But however, the key to leverage these models in applications in critical business processes customer-facing agents, or even compliance-driven scenarios lies in ensuring they produce accurate, contextual, and verifiable information. This challenge, the challenge we are talking about, often boils down to how well the models was, how your applications were grounded to your organization or to your own unique knowledge, and how effectively you can establish a reliable ground truth data set. What we'll do is in this session, we'll dive deep into what it means to ground an LLM, why ground truth is essential, and why the process of creating can be tricky for some people. We'll then also demonstrate how to use an automated approach, harnessing the power of LLMs themselves to generate high quality domain specific data set. And by the end of the session, we'll have a clear roadmap of what or a practical solution of creating and maintaining a robust ground truth data set, which is rooted in your own documents, which is rooted in your own knowledge, and have a methodology to evaluate your agents so that you can confidently deploy them in production.
Cool. Now, hey, question for you, Dirsh. As you're going here, I'd like, by the way, the audience as well. How many of you are familiar with the phrase and the term ground truth and know what that is? And while we're getting those, like, you can just give like a thumbs up or a thumbs down or a smiley face or whatever you want from emoji, that kind of standpoint. And I think you're going to say it right now. I wasn't trying to play straight man, but actually I was curious. I wanted you to answer like, what is ground truth? But it looks like you're going to walk right into that here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Okay. So what do you mean by grounding of LLMs? The image here, it's you see the parents or the folks are angry, but usually ground truth or grounding of LLMs is great. In the world of AI and machine learning, grounding often refers to the process of anchoring your the model responses to a specific domain, a specific corpus, or the context. Think of an LLM as a remarkably knowledgeable person, or but a generalist assistant. By default, it can talk about almost everything, pulling from the ocean of text it was trained on. But however, we still need precise factual answers that aligns to rules of your organization, rules of your or policies which are set in your organization, or and as well as the context of your enterprise. Grounding tethers the LLM to your own internal data, ensuring that your answers are informed, um, the answers follow all the guidelines that you trust. If you talk about an ungrounded LLM, they might provide sound answers. If I ask ABC question to an LLM, you still get an answer. If you don't know the context, you'll still believe that these are sound answers. What a great answer it has given to me.
Mm-hmm.
But they may not be actually backed by any internal knowledge. And that's usually another term for hallucination, where they either cite outdated information, they cite or share incorrect information, which leads to more problems, which we'll discuss in the next stages of our session. But grounding ensures that every statement that LLM makes is verifiable against your own data. And your own data is, it could be, if it's your personal project, it could be your own. If it's your organization's project, it would be your organization related data, but essentially a data which is verifiable.
Funny enough, when you're talking about LLMs being very knowledgeable but not always completely accurate, I think you just described my dad. So, so this is the ground. So as I understand it, what you just said, right? Grounding or ground truth is a way to, and really ratchet up the accuracy, right? And ensure that the data that you are giving to your LLM's context, right, is true for your particular domain or something. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so now we've spoke about what is meant by grounding. When we were saying that this session would be a stepping stone for you to put your applications into production much faster than ever before. Let's talk about why is grounding important for especially putting applications or agents into production. As you rightly said, David, when LLMs move from lab or your own laptops to the real world, reliability is paramount.
Yeah.
Whether you are deploying it for customer support, it could be an internal compliance agent, or let's say an automated decision support system which you're building, you must ensure that your responses of your applications are one, accurate. The answer should match what your internal knowledge is. It should not cite outdated information. It should be contextual, because responses should reflect the unique environment or the policies of your organization or your data set, and should be, of course, compliant. We can't forget compliance at all. Answers must adhere to all those internal and external policies, the rules and regulations set by your organization. It could be a region, a country, a state, whatever it is,
Right.
but has to be compliant, especially in the case of healthcare, finance, and law. I'm not saying that it's not relevant for other industries, but no, compliance is something which is paramount.
Yeah. Yeah. An example I like to use a lot is yeah, I've seen a lot of support based chatbots, like tech ones, especially. And if you're going to have any trust, if your end users are going to have any trust in the thing, that, if I talk to a support bot and I'm trying to figure out a technical issue and it sends me on a wild goose chase that I then go spend hours trying to track down only to find out that it totally hallucinated the result or something, I'm never going to trust it again. Right. Like, so
Absolutely.
this feels like one of those things where the ground truth is like super important, especially medical or something like that.
Very true.
Okay.
And especially in production scenarios, when you are thinking of putting your applications production, hallucinations are just not inconvenient for yourself. They can lead to poor decisions. It could
Yeah.
lead to regulatory breaches, which is massive. And of course,
Yeah.
as you rightly said, you wasted a lot of time, invested a lot of time to get nothing. It can also lead to customer dissatisfaction.
Got it. Okay.
If you ground your LLMs or ground your agents, there is much lower risk of producing these weird results, because now they know how to rely on pre-approved data or pre-approved knowledge. uh, I was no before the session, I was doing a very in-depth research on where did ungrounded LLMs affect companies. So I know in earlier in 2023, there was some client suing an airline company because, but in that process, the lawyer submitted a legal brief written by ChatGPT,
Oh.
and it was submitted to a Manhattan federal judge. The chatbot fabricated some information. The document itself looked very beautiful, but when they went deeper into it, they found out the quotes were fake. It cited court cases which never existed at all, and then it led to. You can all read the news. I won't comment on that, but that's one case. Uh, there's another case which I was reading about. A large carrier in Canada also faced, from a customer service standpoint, they faced significant issue when their chatbot, which they had deployed for customers, provided incorrect information about the customer, leading them to purchase a full price ticket under the impression they could cancel or get a refund later. But essentially, afterwards, they found out that no, actually the ticket wasn't refundable. It not only caused a lot of issues, a lot of stress for the customer,
Yep.
but also affected the airline with wastage of time, money, and of course, as you rightly said, trust among the customers for
Yeah.
that particular brand.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay.
So this brings me to a great concept called ground truth or ground truth data. Uh, Ground truth essentially is an ultimate reference point, a data set of questions. It could be questions, it could be inputs with validated answers that represent the correct and desired responses for a given domain. By for a given domain, I mean it could be for a subset of your, let's say, a department in your organization. It could be a project you're working on. It could be a domain expertise which you want to bring in your application. In traditional machine learning, ground truth labels were the benchmark for evaluating model performance. It still is. In the context of LLMs, agents, GenAI applications, ground truth will help you, one, to evaluate how well your LLM's responses match the ideal answers, right? Apart from that, it will also help you fine tune your LLMs. Tomorrow, if you think that you want to fine tune your LLMs, if you want to build your own custom LLMs, you can use ground truth dataset to ensure that your LLMs have the right context, LLMs have the right knowledge to generate those answers. And you can also use it to continuously improve the LLMs over time, comparing its outputs with against the gold standard dataset which you have already prepared.
Right.
Ground truth provides okay, so from an evaluation standpoint, ground truth provides a stable foundation upon which to measure your own success.
Right.
Without it, there is no reliable way to gauge if the model is improving or no, not improving, or even performing adequately against that specific criteria. And that's where we are saying that ground truth is extremely essential for you if you want to evaluate and understand whether your applications is ready to be put in production or not.
Yeah,
Okay,
right. And
because
I was going to actually ask you a question real quick. I mean, I could see this being super relevant. I mean, the models are changing constantly and improving constantly. OpenAI just released their 4.1 models, right? And for all intents and purposes, right, if we're to believe them, they are more performant, cheaper, better models, better needle in the haystack, all sorts of things. And so people want to get on the bandwagon. But I can imagine if you were using, say, one of the previous models, then you need some mechanism to ensure that if you actually switch to one of these newer models or some other model, that your ground truth is still good, that your application is still accurate and consistent in the way that you would expect. So that's I feel like that is part of the play here, right? Is to have a mechanism by which you can say test, not just with your own data and stuff like that, but like newer models, things like that. Is it true?
Yeah, absolutely. But along with that, in many regulated industries, um, if if they want to be if they want to stay compliant, they are not allowed to use public LLMs. If they want to
Right.
use LLMs, they have to build their own LLMs, or
Got it.
they have to build their own models. And again, to build their own models, they need a large data set so that they can train their models according to their knowledge or their data set.
Okay.
And that's where ground truth data set will also help them do that.
Okay.
Okay, and I think you rightly, what I'm seeing is whatever I want to talk next is what you're asking, which means I'm in the right direction.
I swear, by the way, I haven't seen these slides. So I'm glad to see that it is just being my questions happen to be leading up to the next thing. That's funny.
Which makes me happy that I did a great job preparing for this event. So now let's talk about why is ground truth needed, right? Without ground truth dataset, every answer essentially of your agents or applications is like floating in vacuum. How do you know if it's correct? If you, let's say you are a domain expert, you know what's the right and wrong answer. You can say, hey, LLM, you were not grounded, you gave a very incorrect answer. But imagine doing this at scale. Not everybody who is using your application will be a domain expert.
Yep.
They, whatever response they get, they will believe that it's supposedly correct answer. And that's where we saw examples of how hallucinating LLMs, hallucinating agents affected the brand image and the customer satisfaction.
Right.
With ground truth, you can compute metrics like accuracy, precision, recall, and other KPIs like to understand your quality performance of your applications. Ground truth datasets not only just measure the current performance, they guide an ongoing optimization. As your business evolves, as your application evolves, even if you have a side project, as it evolves, knowledge will change, documents will change, regulations are bound to get updated.
Right.
And your ground truth can be refreshed to ensure that your LLMs, which are the applications, stay aligned with the current state of knowledge. And that's why we need ground truth. And hence, again, reiterating, a stepping stone for putting your applications in production is having a ground truth data set so that you can ensure that you have a gold standard to evaluate your applications against, which gives you confidence that yes, now I'm ready to put my applications in production. I am X%, Y%, or even 100% sure that my agents will not hallucinate to a stage that my brand gets affected or my customers have to face unnecessary stress about because of it. Okay, so now we have spoken about ground truth, grounding. What are the ways to generate ground truth? Traditionally, a very common way to generate ground truth was with subject matter experts. So what you do, you pull in a lot of subject matter experts, SMEs in your organization or outside your organization. They read through the documents, they have the knowledge, they highlight key information and manually generate that ground truth data set. They have an input, they have a verified output. You know it's 100% verified. It is written by subject matter experts, but this approach is very time consuming. It's costly because of course you have to have people to spend that much time to generate that data set, and it does not scale easily.
Right.
It's humanly impossible to generate, let's say, 10,000 input and output verified pairs in 1 minute,
That's
right?
right. Yeah.
It's super difficult to scale. For organizations dealing with thousands and thousands of pages, even at data stacks, I I would surely agree that we at least have more than 10,000 documents of knowledge. I've got, I think it'll be even more. But when any organization, you deal with thousands and thousands of documents in various formats. It could be videos, images, PDFs, PowerPoint presentations. It could be pages of content, and manual methods soon will become impractical because then more documents, more and more data comes in. You'll have to invest more time to manually go through it and generate your ground truth data set. That's one way. There's another way to generate ground truth. Um, it's crowdsourcing. I'm sure you must have heard about crowdfunding. Um, Here with ground truth dataset, you can crowdsource your data. You can conduct surveys, ask your participants to generate some data, get ask them to add value, ask them to validate the knowledge which they have, or your crowdsourced that particular data. And while this can scale better because now you have more number of people who are volunteering to work with you and generate that data set, it can of course scale better than having those small team of SMEs doing all of it, but it's still expensive, it's still time consuming,
Right.
and quality control becomes challenging because now you have less reliable folks, non-SME folks helping you to generate data. You
Right.
still will have to put in an SME to validate whether they are correct or not. And this again becomes a vicious circle. You have to spend more money to have to, and as your data grows, to generate a verified ground truth. Okay. Um, Now we have seen what are the different ways to generate ground truth. We also have discussed why it is time consuming and hard. You need specified or specialized knowledge to ensure that your QA pairs are correct and are of high quality. Domain experts are in high demand, they're costly. If and especially your ground truth data set is always evolving. Today you have, let's say, 1,000 documents. Tomorrow you will have 10,000
Right.
documents, 1 million documents, even more. You will have to keep updating your ground truth data set to have your LLMs grounded to the updated knowledge. Or else you'll again end up with having those hallucinations at the wrong time, affecting your sleep and increasing stress because now your applications are again not grounded, even after so much investments.
Right.
As your organization grows, there'll be more knowledge. You'll have to manually keep adding more and more data. And with complex information, complex data sets, it becomes more harder to maintain your ground truth data set. Usually, with customers or prospects I have spoken to, over time, they start small, they feel it's super easy, but over time, as the data grows, it becomes a nightmare for them. And that's where we also thought that no, let's have this session so that we provide an easier way for developers, our developer friends, to generate that ground truth data set at scale. But before that, let me pause for now.
Yeah, actually, there is a question here from Payal.
Mhm.
How is ground truth? I should put this up. How is ground truth data set different from the golden data set in the
Mhm.
case of NLP applications?
Okay. I think from my perspective, ground truth data set, it's just a terminology. If you ground truth data set means that it's a data set with, let's say, it could be a QA pair, it could be an input output pair, but these are verified information which you know that are 100% correct. By 100%, I mean you are sure shot that these are facts for your organization. For example, sun rises from the east direction. It's a fact. It will never change. Um, I'm not sure about the future. There are a lot of studies around that. I won't comment on that. But a fact will most likely never change. And that's essentially what a ground truth data set is. Tomorrow, if I say I'm a solution engineer at DataStax, it's a fact. It will,
Right.
it will remain as it is. You know, it's verified. You know that it's 100% accurate. Tomorrow, if somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, no, Adarsh is a CTO at DataStax. He's not a solution engineer," that's incorrect. That's invalidated data. If your LLMs are grounded, you will you will get a response saying, "Hey, this is incorrect information. Adarsh is a solution engineer at DataStax,"
Right.
because you had verified information with you. So that's essentially what a ground truth data set is.
Okay. So it sounds. I mean, it sounds like it is somewhat related to the golden data set, right? The same kind of concept overall. Okay.
Yeah, correct.
Okay. Got it.
Okay, so now before I show you the magic on how you can create ground truth data set at scale, let me show you an agent I built using Langflow, and how it is using its knowledge stored on Astra DB. We will not discuss a lot about it because I want to spend more time in showing you how, focusing more on data set evaluations, accuracies, etc. But no, essentially we are going to test the agent which I've built on Langflow. Um, while I start sharing my screen, I think most of us have already gone through what Langflow is. I'll give you a brief of what is Langflow. To those who are new to Langflow, Langflow is an advanced AI development platform designed for building and deploying LLM powered applications or agents with unprecedented speed and unprecedented flexibility. It's probably one of the best platforms out there. It offers a visual builder coupled with a workflow engine that allows developers like yourself, regardless of the experience, create and optimize applications very quickly. It gives you that agility which you really need today, because with changing environments, changing models, changing different ways your application works, Langflow gives you that agility to do that fast. And to talk about Astra DB, from a knowledge layer perspective, what we are doing is we are using one of the best databases out there, a vector database. And this is not me saying that Astra DB is the best. This is Forrester saying that Astra DB is one of the leaders in the vector DB space. So what we have done is we have recently also released Astra DB Hybrid Search, which now integrates the strengths of lexical search and vector search to enhance your search relevance and accuracy. It utilizes the BM25 algorithm for traditional text search while incorporating the state-of-the-art machine learning re-ranking powered by our amazing partner NVIDIA. We are using the NVIDIA's NEMO re-rankers, which operates on the Astra platform, ensuring that you get 45% more relevancy. Now, why did I say this? Why did I talk about Astra? We are coming back to grounding. Another way to ground your LLMs is to provide the right context. Even if you have not trained your application with the current information or the most recent information, you still have the information, or you still know that um, the LLMs have the right information with this concept called RAG,
Right.
retrieval augmented generation, where you do a vector search, where you do a vector, search your knowledge, pass it on to the LLM along with your questions, your inputs, and let the LLMs generate the response using the context. That's as simple as that. With Astra DB, without doing a lot of efforts, and with the capability of our new hybrid search, which we recently launched, you will get 45% better relevancy, which in turn, on the other end, puts you closer to putting your applications in production much faster than ever before. And that's where I wanted to discuss a little bit about Astra DB. But hey, this session is not about Astra or vector search or Langflow. This session is about how can we ensure that we are able to evaluate and test our application. So let's go back to it.
Okay.
All right. So now let me quickly share the agent which I was talking about. In the meantime, do we have any questions?
We do actually. We have from Shivashish. Can we update the ground truth data set from Slack feedbacks and upvotes? I guess you could almost open that question up a little bit more, even be more general. Like, can you update the ground truth data set from really kind of any, I guess, chat app or any kind of like source of data like that?
Absolutely. I think you can do that. It's up to you how you want to build the workflows. In the later part of the session, I'll also talk about what are the nuances of updating and generating, also automatically or continuously upgrading your ground truth data set. But I think that's a great way of asking feedback from SMEs or humans in your organization, where they upvote an answer. I'll remember this. They'll upvote an answer, and you know that, hey, this ground truth is great, and this ground truth data, which is validated by your employees, can go into, let's say, go for production use. I hope it answered the question.
Yeah, I think I got from you that the answer was yes on that. Yeah, you could totally do that.
Yeah. Okay. Now going back to the okay, let me pull up what the agent looks like. Sorry, there's some screen share issue. Got it. So,
Oh, there we go. I see your screen, and just everybody, just give a thumbs up if you are seeing Adersha's screen just fine. Let us know if you need to zoom in anymore or anything like that. We always try to adjust for that. I see lots of thumbs up coming in. Great, cool, man.
Awesome. So it's not a very complicated app or an agent. It's super simple. It has tools. It has, within the tools, it is using the knowledge on Astra DB. What we are also doing is this agent also is storing all the memory, all the historical conversations on Astra, making Astra your single source of truth for your applications. But it's super simple. Now I'll show you. You give an input, it gives you an output with the context. It has all the tools. If you want to add more tools, you can do that. Langflow makes it super easy for you. I am using OpenAI, but if you want to use other LLMs, we are super flexible about it. You can use any LLM, even your custom LLMs can be brought in here for you to start generating or building applications. Now, once the application is built, you can see on Astra DB, there's a plethora of knowledge source, which it has. It has all the vector documents, all the data of that particular agent is available here on Astra DB in vectorized format.
So are these? I'm looking at all these collections that you have. And by the way, I saw a comment from David. Can you zoom in just a little bit more? Hopefully that's a little better there, David. And so I'm looking at these collections that you have, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are some of these the data you're in? Just I see ground truth. Maybe I should give you a moment to explain. But are some of them the ground truth and some of them are like the source data? Is that what we're seeing here?
Yep, absolutely. So for that agent, what I did was I used this particular data. So imagine this is one of your documents. This is a white paper which I stole from our data set. But it's a great white paper. If you know, what we can do is we can share the links of this white paper. It's super amazing. It gives you a perspective of what is going to be the future. But no, to cut the story short, this is a tiny PDF I'm using. Imagine PDFs like this in your organization, documents, videos, images. this is just one. There could be
Right.
thousands and millions of documents in an organization. You use that data, convert them into vectors, store it on Astra DB in whichever format you want. You want graphs, you can do that. You want vectors, you can do that. You want multi-vector, you can do that. And now with hybrid search, we are making Astra more powerful to give you an entire knowledge, to ensure that you have an entire knowledge layer. So I've what I've done is I've converted this document, which can also have images.
Hmm.
It can have text in various formats, not just paragraphs. It could have multi columns. It could have multiple images. It could also have tables, and within the table, it could have mm, important data which you cannot afford to lose. So for this example, this is what the knowledge of my application is. And if I go back to, sorry,
So while you're pulling that back, I think what I'm hearing there is that, in traditional ways of ingesting, say, like a PDF document or something like that, you might lose the images. You might be losing the diagrams. You might lose even bullet points or anything, and which is contextual, like it has meaning in the document. And so
yeah,
if you're losing that stuff by just doing like a flat text ingest or something, then you're essentially losing some of the information and some of the meaning you have overall. So it sounds like what I'm hearing is that, like, what you're going to show us is actually going to allow us to pull that information in.
correct. And
Okay.
now we also use that information to see whether the agent which we have built is able to respond, um, and compare it with our golden dataset or ground truth dataset, and also evaluate and see whether it's actually ready for production or not.
Okay.
All right. And okay, so this is what we have now. No, enough of this agents. Let me show you how you can create ground truth dataset. I think
Okay.
some of you have already got a chance to see it. But this is a very tiny script. You can go to GitHub, you can fork this repository, you can download, play with it if you want to contribute. I'm super open to it. I would love to get your feedback around it. But we have a published repo for you to just, you know, either fork or use howsoever you want it, with a very detailed README file which can help, or which can guide you through how to set it up on your machines.
Okay. So all the code and everything you're showing us here is available in the GitHub repo. That's obviously open source. People can use it.
It's
All that kind of deal. Okay. Well,
absolutely
we'll
yes.
drop the link to the GitHub repo here in a second.
Sure. So this is an example of how you represent your documents. If you have, let's say, a structured information like ID, the title, poster. This is an example of movies. It could have millions of movies. It could be one way of representing your data. But what I'm doing is I am using this particular PDF which I just showed you, running the script on top of that PDF and generating a ground truth. So it's super simple. You just have to give the file name. It could be PDF, it could be doc file, it could be PPT, it could be anything, right? It could be, of course, something which is supported. You add a file. There's something interesting we are doing. I am using a Google Flash model.
I was just about to ask you about that. Actually, I saw the comment. I was curious.
Yeah. So what I am currently doing is I am using the powerful capabilities of Google Flash. After a lot of tests, I found Gemini Flash models to have better OCR capabilities. I could have just extracted the the text, used it to create ground truth dataset. But what I have done is I am converting every page into images and then running the images through the LLM.
Got it.
And there is a very specific reason for me to do that. Many organizations, like many of them who have also joined our webinar, hold crucial information locked away in these documents. It could be any format, and these are not just simple text. I showed you image. It could be tables, it could be intricate layouts, it could be charts, it could be
Yeah.
anything, right? Traditional method or traditional text extraction method flatten this complexity, just pick out plain text. losing all the critical context like tables, headings, visual hierarchies, spatial relationships, etc. And these files are not just words. There is a heading, it's important to it. There is sidebar, there's supplementary insights around it, there's layout choices, which for helping or guiding the readers to understand. If you look at a research paper, it could have multi-column representation of data. And essentially, what I want to say is the visual representation in a particular document is extremely important to give the right context to that readers. And with traditional text extraction, we are bound to lose all that information, and we'll end up with a not so great ground truth data set, which of course can also be inaccurate over time.
Right.
Uh, for an example, a technical manual, let's say you show it to a machine, or it has some labels inside the images as well. Without images, it becomes meaningless. You don't know what it is about. You just have a text saying there was an image of a car with four wheels. That's it. But what about it? What was the metadata around it? Was it red? Was it black? Was it a Tesla? Was it a Ford? Whatever, what was it, right? All that metadata is lost. Now, what I'm doing is I'm converting the PDFs or documents. In this case, it's a PDF. In your case, it could be any document, into images before processing, and essentially generating the ground truth data set that is truer to the original source material. So what I mean by this is every element, it could be tables, it could be images, captions, layouts, hierarchical nuances, everything is considered. This helps the LLMs, or this helps the script to generate more accurate ground truth dataset,
Okay.
which essentially closely mirrors the authenticity of how the data was represented those original documents in the first place. Essentially, what I'm trying to say is, instead of just doing extracting the text and using that information, I am now able to provide a more structured way, or help the LLMs, or help my code to generate the right ground truth dataset, taking care of all those nuances which earlier were lost with just text
Right.
extraction.
Right.
And it's super simple. All I have to do is just now run the script, and it'll start um, converting the PDF into pages, and then start generating question and answer pairs. What I've done is, I don't want to waste a lot of time. I've already pre-created a data set. You will see it's a question answer pair. It has the question, and along with it, it is also able to record an answer. And this is verified because it's a very small data set. I have gone and verified it. I've tested this out with multiple data sets, multiple documents. It's fairly accurate, right? But what I'm saying is, and of course, a lot of you may also get confused saying, you are asking an LLM to
Mhm.
generate ground truth data set for an LLM? What kind of logic is this? Right? So let me clarify. I'm sure, David, you would also have a similar question. Right?
Well, yeah,
Why are
funny enough, I'm maybe preempt you slightly too. I was looking at your GitHub repo earlier.
yeah.
I noticed in one of the settings that the temperature for the LLM was 0, and I thought that was
Hmm.
very interesting because we're essentially saying you get no creativity at all. I
Yeah.
want you to give me exact data, and I'm making an assumption that that is for this, right?
Yeah.
To ensure
Absolutely.
that when you are ingesting these things, that you're not letting it get creative because you do not want it to be creative in this particular case.
Very, very true. Very true. So one method is, I am giving very less context, but I'm asking the LLM that you have zero creativity, you are expert with this data, you have this much data, let's say 1 kilobyte of data
Okay.
as an image. From that image, now it's up to you to generate input and output pairs, or let's call it question and answer pairs for your ground truth. Now, what I've also done is, in my prompt, if you look at the code in the prompt itself, you'll see the answer should not be very long. Even the data from where you pick the questions should not have ambiguous answers, or it should the QA pair should only be created or generated from that tiny chunk which the LLM got.
Got it.
So that's how we are able to control that. Even with smaller data set, it has now more capabilities. We are using powerful LLMs. I am using Gemini Flash. You can use other models where if you see that they have great OCR capabilities.
Right.
OCR, we have discussed why I've used OCR. But LLMs are not replacing humans. There will always be humans in the loop. So let me clarify something. Now, when we talk about leveraging large language models in this case, we are not saying that this process entirely replaces humans in generating ground truth data sets. What we are doing is using the best of the best LLMs. It could be, let's say, one of the best LLMs out there to accelerate your dataset creation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, why? So your teams can spend less time on heavy lifting. By heavy lifting, I mean just typing the question and answer pairs manually, and spending so that we let them spend more time um, doing what they do best. The idea is pretty straightforward. We use LLMs to create the first cut, the first pass version of your dataset much faster than any traditional method. So
Right.
with one document, this is just 9 QA pairs or 8 QA pairs. Uh, what I did was I forgot to change the file name while I was testing it. There was a 500 page long document which I ran, and it created, oh god, even my file itself was around 400 MB. I don't know how did I manage to do that, but
Pretty good one.
in half an hour it was able to generate so much ground truth
Right.
data set for me.
Right.
Um, Essentially, the idea is to fasten the process, but it's really important, and I also do understand that we still have to keep humans in loop. And there was a comment or a question on in this webinar where somebody said, "Can I use Slack to upvote an
Right.
answer?" This is a great example. You can use humans. You generate a super large ground truth data set. You distribute it among employees, saying, "Go through it." Or employees, it could be your friends, it could be crowdsourced, whatever you want to do that, right? Where essentially human is going to, instead of them generating the data set, now they are just upvoting or downvoting an answer to ensure or to let you know that yes, this QA pair or this data set is ready for production use or not for production use, and then you keep iterating this process.
So that actually kind of leads me to a question, right? Good. Take the example you just gave. You
Yeah.
ingest this like 500 megabyte document that I'm assuming generated probably hundreds or potentially thousands of question answer pairs. But if
Absolutely.
you've got a human in the loop, and I totally get that, right? Because you need some
Mhm.
kind of verification step.
Yeah.
Then what does that process look like? I mean, is the human having to sit down and read through all 1,000 or something? I mean, maybe there are tools for that or something. I'm just curious.
Mhm.
What is the role of the human in that case?
Okay. So there are multiple ways. I'll give my perspective. I may be wrong, but what I've seen is a lot of companies, if they have super large data sets, they use um, they use much complex, much more powerful reasoning models with giving them the right context, giving them the right data set. They ask them to evaluate these ground truth data sets and see whether it's making sense or not. There could be you could do sampling where you have SMEs spread across your organization.
Spot
You pick
checking
up
data
a
or
sample
whatever.
data set, send it to them, and see how they do it. And it's an evolutionary process. It's, oh sorry, not evolutionary. It's an ever evolving process.
Yeah.
It keeps evolving. You have new data sets. It's a continuous improvement thing, right?
Okay.
You have one data set, you verify. Now once you're verified, you don't need to re-verify it again. It's now you're part of your golden data set. What we are saying is your domain experts who were traditionally supposed to generate this ground truth data set aren't starting from scratch. They aren't bogged down by checking every single detail. They are reviewing, fine-tuning, improving, whatever it is. We give them a starting point saying we already have a large data set for you. Now it's up to you. How do you want to verify it? How do you want to put them into production? You want sampling, you want other LLMs evaluating LLMs, you want to crowdsource that verification, whatever it is, it's up to you, but you are not starting from scratch. What it really means at the other end for it, no, this is what I have heard from a lot of companies, companies I work with. They said that they are now more productive because they don't have to start from scratch. Instead of spending hours in curating and verifying a lot of data, now your experts in the organization can now switch their focus on adding more value to your organization, doing focus on doing higher value tasks like optimizing the workflows, using Langflow, using Astra DB, or building better models. We are not replacing people.
Right.
Again, I'm reiterating. Please don't hold me to it.
No, you're just
We,
you're enhancing them. That's it's an argument I make a lot today. I vibe code all the time, right?
yeah.
And I've seen people on social media and stuff. Oh my god, coding is dead. Blah blah blah. Honestly, these things are always better when paired with humans, right? They can augment our abilities and make us much more efficient and better at what we're doing if done well. That's a whole different discussion, But yeah, no, I feel like from everything you've been talking about so far, like I'm thinking about funny enough, I used to work in defense, and you're talking about being able to ingest, image based documents, PDFs. And so I can't tell you how much stuff is done in those types of formats. And how much manual work of people sitting down, having to scour that stuff, read things and that kind of deal, compared to if I could use a capability like this to essentially ingest all that stuff for me, and then give me that ground truth that then I can go and verify. I mean, you're potentially talking thousands and thousands of pages of documents someone would have to read, and that's really slow, right? So like, to me, it feels better because I don't feel like I'm just like going through a grind of having to sit down and read these things when I can literally use. I like the fact that the temperature, like you said earlier, there's like no creativity in LLM at all. That actually helps me understand and be like, okay, good. Because if there was, then I would question it, right? But if I know that the LLMs are like, no, like you're being told to just give me exactly what is there in the document. Don't make things up.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't have a term for it. I really like the vibe coding terminology. Can we call it vibe generation of ground truth?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. All right. So no, it's great, right? We now know we now have a way to generate super large data sets at scale. Throw in all your documents, throw in all your images, PDFs, PPTs, whatever you have it. Let our script, again, it's open source. You want to play with it, go crazy. Give your feedback, contribute. I would love to get your contributions. The idea is we make it super simple for you to generate that golden data set. Now, once we, sorry, we also spoke about evaluations. And again, when we talk about production readiness, we need a way to evaluate how accurate our
I was
agents
going to
are.
ask you, is there a way to prove it? Is there a way to prove it? I was just about to ask you that. So I'm glad you brought this
Ooh,
up.
awesome. So now let's talk about evaluations. What we are doing is here we are using an amazing framework by Amazon. I think it's, if I remember correctly, it's from Amazon called Rack Checker. After a lot of tests, there are a lot of LLM evals out there.
Right.
Some of, I think, one of them is Regulate. There are a lot. I still can't remember each one of them. Rack Checker seems to be more accurate for me. I love it. It's super simple to implement. It's much faster. But what I've also seen is it's much closer to what a production ready app is using. And this is not just from me. It's also coming from a lot of customers who have tested this a particular code snippet. They've used the testing rag repository in their organizations and have seen the benefit of how evaluations can help them out.
Yeah.
It's again, I don't want to explain the code. What we are also doing is to make things simpler. We are using Arise Phoenix
Oh, cool.
to
Okay.
capture and store all of it. Again, I don't know, Arise has a great partnership. We love them. I am using the open source version of their observability platform so that I can store this session, whatever is happening right now, the input and output, and whatever my agent is thinking, all of that is going into Phoenix so that in future, if I want to see starting today over time, how my agents evolved, how my agents became more accurate or less accurate. I can do that with Phoenix. It's super simple to use.
That's
It's
cool.
awesome. I think you should try it. It's baked into the code, so you don't have to necessarily go ahead and do that installation headache by yourself. All you have to do is just copy the repo, and you're good to go.
Oh, and Phoenix has a free tier, like that is a like nobody has to pay for anything to try it out or anything.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool.
If you want to use the cloud version, there's a free version to
Got it.
use
Got it.
that.
Okay.
Again, you run the script, but once you run the script, once you run this code, what you get is something like, so what I also wanted to show you is it makes it very simple to consume these metrics. And you can see I have, for comparison, I have two different metrics. One is old, one is the new one. You can see the precision was 45. I'll explain what these numbers are. But now, after I have gone ahead and made a lot of changes to my agents, ensured that it has the right database, it is using hybrid search of Astra DB, improving the relevance, this is what the score I got. Where from production readiness, I know what my precision is, what my F1 score is, what's the claim recall, context utilization. Now you would be wondering, Adarsh is talking about all these numbers. What do they really mean?
Mm-hmm.
How do I make sense of these numbers? So I have prepared for that as well. Starting with the overall metrics, you see we have precision. Um, what it means is 75% precision means that 3 out of every 4 responses which were generated by the agent were factually correct.
Okay.
So essentially, RAG checker, what it does is it uses the context, it uses the ground truth answer, it also combines the answer which was generated by the agent and tries to evaluate whether it's really used the context, whether it's factually correct, whether it's factually incorrect, and then give us these metrics. Now it's quite strong, right? 75% is great. Even better, we have a recall of 98.4%. These are all percentages, by the way. The system is pulling in nearly all the relevant information about from the knowledge base, and the knowledge base is on Astra DB. When you combine both these two, you get F1 score, which comes at around 83.6%, which is solid, which is on overall GenAI standpoint, it's a solid quality. Moving on to the retrieval metrics, you see a claim recall to be 100%. This is where we measure how well the retrieval engine, the AstaDB, is feeding information into the model. The claim recall is perfect 100%. This is for my tiny agent which I had built.
Right.
Your could be other. It means that every claim made by the model is directly grounded in retrieved document. All the existing
Cool.
statements are available on the knowledge base.
I got
And
you.
this is a super critical grounding metric. You
Yeah.
will know that what your claim recall is. And similarly, the context precision here is 78.1%, which tells us that most of what we are retrieving, 78% of what we are retrieving from the knowledge base is useful. Though there's some more scope for improvement, we can do it with knowledge graphs, lazy graph,
Right.
whatnot.
Right.
We can do more, but this is what context precision means.
Okay.
Now let's look at generator metrics. This will show you how the language model is using the retrieved context. Okay, first, you have context utilization, which is excellent at 98.4%. So almost all of it which was retrieved was actually used to generate the final answer.
Got it.
This is a great sign of alignment. We know that our knowledge base, our agents are aligned with the grounded data.
Okay.
Now, next we have something called noise sensitivity in relevant context, which is at 24.5%. It indicates that while relevant chunks were used, there are still some off-topic chunks which came into the answer. It came into the generation of that answer. Of course, the LLM was able to use 98.4 context. It was able to get the right context, but during a vector search, during extraction of that knowledge, some irrelevant chunks also came in. It's okay, you can fine tune it, you can do better chunking. Of course, for me, I did basic chunking. You can do a little bit of better prompt engineering and do a little bit of better chunking strategies, and you're good to go. The rest of the generator metrics, which you see here, are exactly what we want them. Noise from sensitivity from irrelevant chunk is 0, which means no off topic, no random answers, no information slipped. Even better, you can see hallucination is 0, which means your models did not invent anything at all. Whatever context it had, it used that context. It's essentially leading to better production readiness. Finally, you have faithfulness at full 100%, which means everything the model said, the model replied, was consistent with the context it was given. Overall, we see that yes, this is a well-performing RAG system. It is grounded, it is faithful, it is efficient, and with some areas of improvement which we spoke about, I think it's a great application or a great agent to put into production.
Now, does this visual I'm seeing, is this part of what's in the GitHub repo?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, okay, cool. Yes. Okay, so this is the metrics and everything like that are just as part of it. So, okay.
You can consume them from Phoenix,
okay.
But
you're tying into Phoenix and then showing them.
This UI makes it super easy for you to consume.
Got you. Awesome. Well, hey, I mean, thank you, Adarsh, today for all of the really great information here. We are at time. By the way, I did see a question coming from VG there. I just pointed them to you, actually. I think that'd be really relevant. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. And especially, I saw those folks who are answering the polls. A lot of folks are definitely doing RAG, right? But not everybody, actually less than half, are doing RAG with ground truth. So this sounds like an opportunity for those of us out there who have who are trying to bring our agentic and our generative AI apps into production, especially with RAG data and contextual data. This is a good opportunity to really improve our game, right? So thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you, Adarsh. And with that, we'll sign off. See you, everybody. Take care.